are now listening to CTR Media Network.
The family. CTR Media Network. Yeah. Best in the biz. Yeah. Join the team. CTR is who we are, the media network, that's the best by far. Whether you listen at your home, at your job, in your car, come get the information that's needed above par. Never lasting, motivational podcasting, giving you the answers to the questions that you're asking. Serious talks and topics, how to come up and profit, how to better yourself, your health is here. We got it, reaching 350 million, they tuning in. We in 50 different countries, we all can. And like-minded, find your purpose and your assignment. Come get your fix, your feel, your mental alignment. Get active and speak to the masses. Build your influence all levels and all classes. Now you know you can monetize and grow. CTR Media Network. Start the show. CTR Media Network.
And welcome to CTR Media Network TV. Today's guest is Scott Maderer. He is a coach, speaker, and author of Inspired Living. Scott helped Christians master their time, talents, and treasure to live their true calling. If you're ready to be moved from just working to living with purpose, you're in for a powerful conversation. We are so happy to be welcoming to you guys today the phenomenal Scott Maderer. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so when I see everything that you have been doing, so many people are looking for their purpose. Mm-hmm. They do not have the skill to identify their call. We hear it so much now in media. And so I'm so glad I have a thought leader that this is what they do to help us be able to identify what that is. So when I think about your journey, working in education, building Inspired Stewardship full-time is truly inspiring. Can you share with us what was your aha moment that made you realize it was time to fully step into your calling?
You know, that's interesting because I think the truth is a lot of times it isn't an aha moment. I think that's one of the myths that we kind of have around calling is that you suddenly get this flash of lightning from above and it's like everything falls into place and it's all perfect now. And I'm not going to say that never happens. I mean, I think it does for some people. But for a lot of us, instead, it's really a journey of discovery. It's a journey of kind of peeling back the layers of an onion, or if you'd rather have the Shrek reference, pulling back the layers of a parfait. I think that's tastier, right? It's pulling back all those layers and uncovering it. And it's more of a journey than a destination. So for me, it's been a lot of different things. When I was a school teacher, there were things about being a teacher that I found that I loved. And then there were things that drained me and didn't give me energy, and other parts of my life showed up. And so a lot of the process was looking for those things that gave me energy, that they were the things that came naturally to me, and then trying to add on and do more and more of that and peel off the things that weren't giving me energy. Now, there's still a certain amount that I have to do every day just because we're alive. The laundry still has to get washed. The dishes still have to get put in the dishwasher. Those things. Garbage still has to be taken out. But there's also more and more of my life that's kind of aligned with those things that are my passions and the things that really feed my soul.
I'm so glad that you said the aha moment, you broke it down, because many people, they're looking for that textbook movie, Disney movie, or it's a lightning bolt. This is the moment. I heard God tell me to do this, and now I know I have to do that. And, I never thought about it until you just said it. It's not necessarily, I didn't get a aha moment to think about it, but it was through the journey and then through discovery and going through some things that I equated to my aha moment, but it wasn't some life profound thing that just stopped me and the earth shook.
Right.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because I never thought about it until just this moment when you said it. I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't have that either.
There's lots of experiences that I can go back and I can go, oh, that experiment, that experience gave me this insight, or this experience gave me this part of my journey, and a lot of times they were the messy parts too. I was my wife and I were almost divorced. I was suicidal over finances. We had this massive financial stress in our lives, and turning that around. That's one of the reasons that I coach in the area of money, is because when we turned our life around, other people started looking at us and going, okay, y'all are doing stuff weird. Could you tell us how to be weird too? Because it turned out that being weird actually worked. And so they started coming to us for help. Coaching came out of that. So there are experiences, in the classroom, there were things I did with kids, but none of them were a single moment of epiphany and aha. They were a series of discoveries and uncovering.
Great point. So many of our listeners, now that we identified that you might not have that jaw jerking, aha, lightning bolt moment, they may still feel stuck. And so between passion, you speak about how you do things that more purposeful and more passionate, that is not draining to you. So how can someone begin this self-discovery journey to be able to identify what their calling may be while trying to live real life? Because life be life in some time.
So let me give you a couple of activities that you can do right now. Like literally, you could start this while you're listening. Okay, if you're driving, don't do this while you're listening. But for everybody else, you can start this while you're listening. Pull out a piece of paper and divide it into 3 columns. And down the left-hand column, put activities. And in the middle, put things I loved. And in the right, things I don't love. Things I hate, if you'd rather have that language. I prefer don't love. But so it's activities, things I love, things I don't love. And then just begin to brainstorm. And this is one of those activities that it's good to go back to and maybe even let it sit and percolate and come back to it over a couple of days or maybe even a week. And down that first column, just begin to brainstorm all the different things you've done in your life. And don't get me wrong, I'm not just here talking about things you've gotten paid to do. I'm not just talking about career, because that's one of the mistakes that we make, is we equate career and calling, and they aren't exactly the same thing. They're related, but they're not the same thing. So activities that you've done could be that time you were babysitting for the summer. It could be that time you were at summer camp. It could be a relationship you were in, or a role you have, like parent or your father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter, those sorts of things, as well as things you've done for pay. So be as broad as you can, as general as you can, and just brainstorm things that you've done in your life. And then for each of those, your job is to put some things down that you love, things that you enjoyed, things that gave you energy, things that fed your soul, all of those activities. When you did that activity, what are the parts of it that fed you, that gave you energy? And this is important. For every activity, you've got to write down something that you enjoyed. Okay. I don't care how horrible it was. Find that one little glimmer that was something that it was like, nope, that was it. That was it. That was the one thing out of it that I enjoyed. And then in the last columns, put down things that didn't feed you, things that didn't give you energy, things that drained you. So the purpose of this activity is, once you've done this, and again, spend some time with it. This isn't something to whip out and do in 5 minutes. Begin to go back and look for patterns. What keeps showing up in the love column? What keeps showing up in the don't love column? Because what you'll notice is there will be patterns. There will be things that show up over and over again. And those will begin to give you an inkling of probably some things that come naturally to you, some things that lie within your giftings, the things that give you purpose. That's what we identify with calling. And then you can look for the things that, don't show up, the things that you want to get rid of. And those are things you want to move away from. The second activity is kind of a future activity. So this is to look backwards and to begin to find what you already know. The second activity is to look forward, because you always got to have a destination in mind. If the first step to getting anywhere is know where you're going. Otherwise, you just get nowhere. So this is going to be a thought experiment. Imagine for a moment that it's 5 years in the future. It's 5 years from today. I used to travel a lot when I worked in corporate. I was on a plane all the time. So I set this in an airport because I'm very familiar with them. Imagine for a minute, you're on that trip and you're flying home, and you know how you have those connecting flights where you land at an airport and you just got to book it over to the other gate, and then you hop on a plane and then you get the rest of the way home? Well, as you're at that connecting airport, as you're booking it across the airport, you get up to the gate, you look up, and it's got those dreaded words, flight delayed. Oh, great. Now I'm stuck in this connecting airport for the next 4 hours. I've got nothing to do. So you do what anyone does when they're stuck in an airport for 3 or 4 hours. You go find either a restaurant or a bar, depending on your personal preference, and find a place to get something to eat or something to drink. So as you do that, as you're walking into a restaurant, you walk in and all of a sudden from across the restaurant, you hear this voice that says, "Hey, Tina, I haven't seen you in so long." It turns out there's a friend of yours there. They've moved away. Y'all have lost contact. You haven't seen them for the last 5 years. Turns out they've got a layover too. So you go grab a corner booth, sit down quiet together, and your friend looks at you and goes, "Tina, how have you been?" And you go, "You know what? The last 5 years of my life have been the best 5 years of my life because." Your job is to write what comes after the word because. What is it about your relationships? What is it about your finances? What is it about your spiritual walk? What is it about your career? What is it about all of the components of your life that would make you look at this person that you haven't seen and say, "This next 5 years have been the best 5 years of my life"? And between those two activities, you can start to get an inkling to what your purpose is and what can you do to move the different components of your life in the direction of living your purpose. Notice, by the way, none of this is an instantaneous change. None of this is a light switch. I'm not saying quit your job and go change your life. No, this is a process, not an event. This is something that takes time and takes discovery and takes effort.
I like how you said that it's a process, because many times when people give you a process, it's usually something dramatic that has to be done before you initiate the process. And I like how you said, I'm not telling you to quit your job. Don't do any of that. I'm just telling you this is a process, not an event. You need to work this systematically, step by step, and understand and know that it's self-discovery. A journey is going to take some time, and that time can change based upon the person in their life. But I love how you take it from going backwards to forward, because we don't tend to think about that, but God actually works that way. And so I'm seeing how your pattern with how to get a life together is really balanced, or I would say is in the framework of how God have already laid out in the Bible, because I know your core is really centered on God. And so with that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about time, talent, treasures, and how we can use that, because now we understand, thanks to you, what the journey looks like, how we can create the life that we want to create based upon working your process. But how should we focus when we think about focus? We focus a lot on our time, we focus a lot on talent and the treasure, but why is alignment between all three so important, especially when you think about entrepreneurship or being a creator or a person who is trying to change or redirect their life?
So here's the thing. And I'm going to give you, it's a secret just between us. Nobody else is listening, right? So just between us, keep it on the down low. The truth is, time and money are the symptoms. At the end of the day, the only thing you can work on is talent. Let me tell you what I mean. Time and money are just finite resources. They're just tools. They're resources, they're tools. You give all different names that you want to give it. And what happens is we think to ourselves, if I could just find the right app, I'll get my time straight. If I could just find the right budgeting tool, then my money will all work and everything will be perfect. And I don't know about anyone else, but some of us kind of go from app to app to app to app to app to app to app, trying to fix our life. And the problem is, it's not time and it's not money. It's us. We're the problem. Now, here's the good news. You're also the solution. Because at the end of the day, it's really not about managing time or managing money. It's about managing yourself. It's about things like mindset. It's about behavior. It's about habits. It's about all those things that you do that you don't even examine. You know why your calendar gets full of stuff that's not important to you? Because you let it. Because you say yes to stuff that isn't a priority, and you say no to stuff that is a priority. And then you complain about it. But you did it. We do it ourselves. We put it on our calendar. We make commitments that we shouldn't. With our money, you want to know why your money goes places and you're like, I don't even know where our money went. because you let it, you know? And so it is important to have those apps and those tools to be able to monitor those things, but you're only monitoring them. It's attention that matters. It's focus that matters. It's being able to look down at things and go, you know, this is actually what's important to me. So that's the thing I'm going to say yes to. And yeah, that may mean I have to say no to something else, but that's okay because this is more important. I'll give you an example for time. Let's just one quick tip. I want everyone, and by the way, this works for money too, so I'll translate it. But in time, change your language. Stop saying, I don't have time to do that. You're no longer allowed to say, I don't have time to do that. Instead, you have to say, that's not a priority for me right now. Because stop and think for a minute. Imagine you're there at you're working, it's late, your coworker's there, and you're busy and everybody's busy. And you look at your coworker and you go, you know what? I don't have time to make it to my daughter's soccer game tonight. Your coworker would be like, oh, I feel so sorry for you. You know, we're so busy. It's crazy around here, blah, 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 blah. If on the other hand, you looked at your coworker and you say, you know what? It's not a priority for me to make it to my daughter's soccer game tonight. Your coworker's going to look at you and be like, what, are you a jerk? You know, I mean, shut the computer down, go to the soccer game. What are you doing? Because, and by the way, you'd feel that yourself too, just by changing your language. Same thing happens with money. If you say, you know, this thing is not a priority for my money, this thing is not where I want my money to go, you'll start spending your money different. It's really about recognizing that you always have a choice. And so, like, for instance, my clients are never allowed to tell me I had to. If they say, I had to do that. No, you didn't. You chose to do that. I don't care what it is. You chose to do it. It's accountability. It's responsibility. It's giving yourself the power of choice, because when you say I had to, you're actually taking away your own power. And so at the end of the day, yeah, I have lots of tools and techniques to use, you know, to manage time and money. But the real focus is on ourselves through the talent component in managing ourselves and our own mindsets, our own beliefs, and our own behavior.
That was powerful. That alone, people, you need to just take that clip and just redo it 24/7, because basically you gave us the roadmap and about how to reshape our mind and the power of our words. Many times we don't think about what we say actually create our reality, and we have to be very meticulous about what we put out, because that's what we get back. I call it the boomerang effect. Like, be careful what you say, you know? And so when I think about that, that was great. That was great. So when it comes to productivity, because many people, you were speaking about apps, and many times we get these apps because we want to be more productive. But what ends up happening, we get so crowded out with all of these notifications, all of these apps asking for something all at the same time. And then you just start getting to the point where you're not doing anything at all. So you teach that it's not about getting more done, but it's about getting the right things done. So what practical steps can we take to shift our mindset into that new framework that you mentioned?
So a lot of that is, you know, exactly what I was just talking about. You know, let's define some terms for a minute. You know, again, we use busy all the time, and we almost use it as a badge of honor, right? Somebody asks, how you doing? Oh, I'm busy. You know, that's our answer nowadays. And it's like, why is that something to be proud of? Because all busy means is I did a lot of stuff. I'll prove it to you. Tell me if you would be busy. If I hired you, if I said, hey, I'll pay you $100 to go to my backyard, and I got a pile of rocks on one side of my backyard, and your job is to pick up one rock, bring it to the other side of the yard, put the rock down, and then go back and get another rock, and just do that all day long. And when you run out of rocks, pick them up from the pile that you just made and carry them back to the first pile. Just do that all day long. That's it. Would you be busy?
Yeah, busy for sure, but not productive.
Would you be productive? You know, would you feel like you had purpose? No. Right. And in fact, if I was only paying you $100 a day, you might look at me and go, no, thanks. You know, even if I paid you $1,000 a day or $10,000 a day or $100,000 a day, there would be a point where you would go, okay, I got enough money. I don't need to do this anymore. You know, because, you know, I don't have any purpose for it. I don't have any autonomy behind it. And so recognizing that busy is not a badge of honor. So when you look at your time, first off, become aware. So I'll give you another quick exercise. Everybody can do this at the end of the call. Write down on a sheet of paper every half hour that you're awake. So you get up at 7 in the morning, 7:30, 7:30 to 8, 8 to 8:30, so on, right? Just 30-minute increments, just on a sheet of paper. And then set an alarm, preferably a silent one, so you don't drive everybody nuts, on your phone or on your watch or something, to vibrate every 30 minutes. And every 30 minutes, just jot down what you were doing during that half hour. You don't need to capture every detail. This isn't about, I drank 3.2 ounces of water. It's about, I scrolled Facebook for a few minutes. I answered some emails, and, I kind of vegged out for a few minutes. Okay. I watched Netflix from this time to this time, whatever it is, just the things you did. And I will tell you, I've had people do that for about a week and go back and look at it. I have yet to have somebody do this and not come back to me and go, I had no idea I was spending that much time doing fill in the blank. There's always something or two. There's always one or two things that you're like, really? I spent 14 hours doing that, or whatever it was, because we just lose track of it. We're not paying attention to it. And again, the first step to fixing a problem is knowing there's a problem. So if you don't know where you're spending your time, you can't begin to make different choices and give yourself the power to start saying no to some of those things. And then, turning off those notifications that are interrupting you, putting on boundaries so you don't check email every 2.5 seconds. If I say right now, your phone notifications, I guarantee you somebody just grabbed their phone or looked at their phone to see if they had a notification, because it's hardwired into us. It's like, and yet the truth is, you're listening to this podcast right now. You don't need to check out a phone notification. You don't need to get distracted with other things, but we do it because we're not aware of the fact that we're doing it.
That is so true. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be back in a moment as we get more deeper into this conversation. And you guys, go get you something to drink, get you a snack, and come on back after this commercial break.
Thank you so much, CTR Media Network, Dr. Tina Ramsay, along with the staff of CTR Media Network and all of the podcasters that have programs featured on CTR Media Network. I'm Kim Jacobs, the host of The Kim Jacobs Show, and we're bringing balance to the world one household at a time. It is such an honor and a privilege to be able to be associated with Dr. Tina Ramsay and her program with CTR Media Network. They go over and beyond the call of duty and do exceptionally well when it comes to the podcasters. I'm saying things that are like, ooh, mind-blowing. They are exceeding our expectations, and I cannot be more grateful and more thankful. So I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for all of your professionalism, your consideration, going the extra mile to make sure that your podcasters have what we need to be able to have a thriving program and to get exposed to over 350 million households, 46 countries. I am excited to be a part of CTR Media Network, and I don't take it for granted. Thank you, Dr. Tina Ramsay, for all that you do. God bless you.
And just like that, we are back, and I come along with an amazing guest. Yes, Scott Maderer. And before the commercial break, he was breaking down time, talent, and treasure mastery, and getting us out of the framework of saying certain things and expecting a different outcome. And he also gave us examples and illustrations to help us to be able to master our time and our words. So with that being said, with business owners that watch our show, how can they better manage both their personal and business life? And when I'm thinking about the thing that mostly causes people problems, and that's finances. It's a thing that breaks up relationships, whether it's from a business level or a personal level. So how can we solve that problem, or give us one tip or something that we can do?
So again, it's the same. This is one of the cool things about working with time and money and talent like I do, is a lot of the frameworks that we apply to time, we can also apply to money. Now, the exact tools are different, but the frameworks are the same. So one of the things I was talking about with time is awareness. Same thing happens to us with money. Most of us, and business owners, I hate to tell you this, but entrepreneurs, we're the worst about this. We're so busy. We're out there running and gunning to make the money that we don't pay any attention to what's going on with the money. We lose track of it because it's all about the revenue. I've had people tell me something like, oh, I had $1 million month. And I'm like, really? You made $1 million in profit? They're like, oh, no. I just made $1 million in revenue. Oh, okay. Well, then how much did it cost you to make that $1 million in revenue? I have no idea. Then how do you know how much money you made? Because at the end of the day, it's not what you make and it's not what you spend. Is there a difference between those two? Is that difference positive or negative? And then what are you doing with that difference? Okay, that's what matters. And so a lot of it comes down to, again, sitting down. So something to start with, just literally start tracking your money. Start seeing where it went. And here's the interesting thing. If you start seeing where it went, well, you got to have something to compare that to. So we call that a plan. The fancy word for it is a budget. I prefer spending plan because people hate the word budget. It's the same thing, but it really means sitting down and before the month begins going, this is about how much money I think I'm going to spend on eating out. This is about how much money, business. This is about how much money I think I'm going to spend on marketing. This is how much I have in payroll. This is how much I have in whatever. And guess what? You're going to get it wrong. You're not going to be exactly right. That's okay. The point isn't about getting it perfect. The point is about making progress. Because if I have that plan and then I track and I compare what actually happened to what I thought or was planning to have happen, that then lets me start reviewing and reflecting and revising and figure out, hey, I was wildly wrong. Is that because I budgeted wrong or is that because I behaved wrong? Is it because I thought it was going to cost me this much and actually, no, it cost me this much? Or is it that's a budget problem? Or is it because, no, I actually budgeted the right amount of money, but I was just kind of irresponsible and willy-nilly and just kind of spending like nobody's business. And I looked up at the end of the month and I spent 3 times as much as I thought I was going to spend. That's the same sort of thing. That's a behavior problem, right? I still have to shift. But until you know where the variance is and why there's variances, you can't, again, begin to adjust things. You're not seeing the real situation. You're not seeing the real reality. And until you face reality, you can't make the right adjustments. I know people that have spent thousands of dollars on a marketing program, have no earthly idea if the marketing program is working or not. It's like, it's not necessarily that that's money good spent or bad spent. It's you don't know. So it's that awareness techniques. It's coming in and finding the tools and the techniques to become aware of what you're doing and what are the results of that behavior so that then you can make the changes that you need to make in a positive way. I've seen business owner after business owner come into a business situation and that awareness within a few months starts dramatically changing what they're doing in a way that's really positive. I've worked with folks that haven't been able to pay themselves for 3 years. And after 3 months, take home a paycheck for the first time because they just change their behavior and start doing things differently because they know what's going on.
I like how you mentioned, I noticed that you kept saying something, a theme, what you just said, behavior. Okay. And so with that, you speak very highly because you are a certified DISC communications individual. It's a tool, but many people may not be familiar with DISC. So DISC. Could you explain what that is and why this tool can help us with our behavior? And I know what it is, but I want the viewer noise to know what it is.
Yeah, I can give you a quick crash course. So DISC was invented in the 1960s by a gentleman by the name of Marsden. He's also the guy who invented Wonder Woman and the lie detector test. But those are asides. You go look that up yourself. But DISC he wanted to look at people who were, quote, not abnormal. At that time, abnormal psychology was big. And he's like, I want to go look at some normal people. And he came up with this framework where he said, okay, there's kind of these components and people tend to be more one way or more the other way. So let me give you the components. Most people, some of them are more outgoing and some are more reserved. Now, let me define outgoing and reserved. That's not extrovert and introvert. Okay. People oftentimes think of it the same way. It's not. Outgoing people are people whose motors run really fast. These are the people that get up and they go. They talk fast. They move fast. They're shaking their hands around like I'm doing right now. That kind of person, high energy. They're always on. a reserved person's a little calmer. They think a little slower. They move a little slower. They talk a little slower. It's not, they kind of tend to be that calming influence on things. By the way, one of these is not good and the other is bad. They're just different. So Tina, play along. For you, are you more outgoing or more reserved?
Outgoing. I'm animated.
Definitely outgoing. All right. So we're going to put you at the top of that particular axis. Mm-hmm. The other axis, the left-right, is some people are more task-oriented and some people are more people-oriented. So again, let me define the terms. Task-oriented people are the kind of people that, well, let's just say you probably have a to-do list and you probably put all your items on the to-do list and you prioritize your items and you want to make sure you cross off. You're probably the kind of person that's added an item to your to-do list that wasn't originally on there just so you could cross it off. Okay, that kind of person. You tend to think about what needs to happen. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, a people-oriented person, if you give them a job, if you ask them to do something, their first thought is about the people. Their first thought is, who do I need to do this job with? How can I make sure that people are taken care of? It tends to be focused on the person as opposed to the product or the task or the outcome or the result, however you want to say it. Again, one of these is not good and the other's not bad. They're just different. So, Dr. Tina, for you, people or task?
I feel like I'm split because
if you had to pick one, 51% of the time, which one would you say you were? I
am a bit list person. I have lists.
Okay. So let's put you on task. By the way, what you just said is important because somebody else is listening right now and they're like, oh, I'm kind of one of these sometimes and I'm the other one the other time. The truth is nobody's purely any one of these things. We're all a blend of more than one. And there is some situationalness to it too. In some situations, you may be more outgoing and others more reserved. So I'm going to give you a chance to change your answer here in a minute. But right now you said you're outgoing and you're task oriented. So in the DISC model, outgoing and task oriented is a D. D stands for direct, dominant. They are people who are interested in results. So if you come to them and you talk to them about, we need to do this because it's going to get good results, they're like, yeah, you're talking my language. I want to get results, right? Okay. You're resonating, you're smiling. So that's probably right. Now let's go to the other ones. So an outgoing people-oriented person, that's the I in the DISC. These are inspirational people. These are the folks that are high energy. They are fun. They are the life of the party. They enjoy being the center of attention. Not selfish, but they're very interested in just making it fun. They're the folks that if you're at an event and somebody up at the stage goes, hey, somebody come up on the stage, they're like already on the stage. The person hasn't even finished the sentence. Not you. Okay. So those are inspirational types. Okay. When we go to that down now, so that's D, that's the I. The next one is going to be reserved and people. You'll notice I'm kind of going around clockwise. That's the S. So reserved, people-oriented people. These are the supporters. These are the nicest people on the planet. These are the folks that are about fairness. They're about the status quo. They don't like conflict very much. They tend to be the calming influence. They're the folks that want to make sure everyone's taken care of. Okay. If I put a bunch of them together in the corner of the room, they hold hands and begin singing Kumbaya spontaneously. That's these people. The last one is going to be reserved and task oriented. These folks are a C. C is for cautious. Cautious folks, they're about getting it right. Their language is get it right. They take a lot of time to do it, but they're going to go through all the steps. If I give them a list and it's numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, they're going to do number 1 before they do number 2, before they do number 3, because you gave it to me in order. Therefore, I must do it in order. Okay. That's going to be the cautious type. So you were a T based on your first answer. If you had to point to one of the other ones, which would you say is your second category? You said not I, so I take that one off.
I think it was the S for, I'm not a kumbaya, but I am a person that like things to be fair. Okay. So the S, I think that was the S for
that
S.
Is. That's the S, and the S's are very interested in fairness and correctness and getting things, people being taken care of. Yeah, so that's a DS. Okay. You probably have some C too, because I noticed you smiling some when I said some of the C stuff, but it's probably not as strong. And that's very
Yeah.
possible. Again, people
I
can
do
be a
have some
blend.
of it, but my
But your
fairness for
major
people is
two
a
are
bit
D and S.
stronger. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of where this comes in handy, because this is quick enough and easy enough that just by talking to you and listening to you, I can begin to pick up on your style. And I won't get it perfect, but I'll kind of know, like I'd already kind of picked up on you were a D because of some of the things that you were saying and the way you were phrasing those sentences. I hadn't gotten to the S or the I yet, or the C yet, because we hadn't talked long enough. But as we would have talked, I would have picked up on those secondary traits. And so if you can kind of learn this framework and begin to learn what to listen to, two things happen. One, you understand yourself better. So if you're a D and you know you're a D, and you know that one of your employees or coworkers or spouse is an S, you'll understand why they look at you and go, why are you mad at me when you were just talking normal? Because the D walks into the room and is like, hey, how's everybody going? And the S is over there going, sounds like conflict. You must be mad at me. And it's like, and the S is, and you're not mad at them. You're not. But you have to learn to slow down, talk a little softer, talk a little quieter. Let them know that everybody's going to be taken care of, that everything's going to be okay, that they're going to be okay, that this change that's happening isn't going to disrupt anything in a horrible way, and that whatever goes, we'll take care of it, we'll be in this together. Now all of a sudden they start going, hey, you're talking my language. You're making me feel better. I feel a little calmer. If they're an I, you can make sure that there's some fun and some energy. If they're an C, you can make sure they have all of the reasons why. They aren't real good at just doing it. They want to know why they're doing it and how they're doing it. They're the ones that irritate the heck out of Ds because they ask like 400 questions. Okay. And the D's like, just go get it done. And they're over there going, but no, I need all this first. But once you understand that, you begin to realize, okay, wait a minute. Because as a leader, if I don't learn my language and learn their language, I can't now communicate well with them. And guess what? As a leader, that's your fault. It's incumbent on you to change your style to help that other person, not the other way around. Okay. Now you can teach them this stuff. They can learn this stuff, all of that, but it's really not incumbent on you. As the leader, you've got to go first. So it's incumbent on you to do it. And then you'll bring your team along. There's tons of ways you can use this. And the ways that I like DISC, because there's a lot of other systems out there and they all work and they're all good. I like DISC because it's, I'm not always able to think about too many things at once. And it's simple enough that I can keep it in my head and I can use it in real time while I'm having a conversation, and in the back of my head be listening and going, oh, they're probably this. Okay, I should kind of shift the way I'm talking and put more of that in there.
I love it because for the simple fact is, I think if we as entrepreneurs, or even if you work for someone, if everyone was required to do a DISC assessment, I feel that the communication between all the parties would be so much better, even down with your relationship with your significant other, because now you understand what is their emotional cues, what are their behaviors, what they like, what they don't like. And I feel like this will be something that will be an effective tool to help you as you are building your team as an entrepreneur. So
absolutely. Yeah, because as an entrepreneur, when you're hiring people, a lot of times you want to hire people that are just like you because it feels comfortable. And the problem is you don't need a team full of people just like you. That's usually not a recipe for success.
I had to learn that the hard way. I mean, ideally, you say, if I could duplicate myself 10 times, all of this stuff will get it. Then you have to like, wait a minute. This don't work. So I had to reframe everything, because you don't need a whole team of you. You need different people to help with the strength and the weaknesses.
You need different strengths and weaknesses. That's what makes the team more powerful. And I've done that for a lot of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial teams. I've done it to help them with hiring. I've done it with team development. You can go in and do those sorts of DISC assessments and then teach people how to use it. And you're right. It makes a night and day difference sometimes in the way their teams behave.
It does. And it make as a leader, because now you understand, like some people like, I wish I could just understand how they think. Well, a DISC assessment is really giving you an open analysis of how the person think, even down to from an emotional standpoint, because like you said, you can be able to reframe real time, remembering, oh, okay, I remember they're more of a C, they're not a D. Oh, they're I versus a S. And they're kind of like blended, but this one is more dominant. And you'll be able to get more results, because I personally took a DISC test one time when I was being coached by another coach, and one of his requirements was that you had to take a DISC assessment. I never heard of it before that time. And then now I'm like, listen, before I do my one-on-one coaching with you, you have to take a DISC assessment or a personality test. I prefer DISC more than a personality test because it's just a little bit more structured, in my opinion. More structured, but all of them are good in their own way. Right. And so when we think about, we're going to talk more about this mindset and behavior change. You specialize in, I want to go a little deeper, because you specialize in helping people move beyond the tools into a true behavior change. So what are some of the biggest mindset blocks that you see, and how can we start overcoming them?
You know, a lot of the limiting beliefs are things that we have that are programmed into us from a very early age. A lot of them show up, and it's that voice that talks to yourself. One of my fellow coaches that I admire, like, she calls them Hildas. You know, that's they talk to us and they tell us all the stuff that we can't do. And so again, part of the first step is just becoming aware of what those limiting voices are saying. They're different for different people, but a lot of times they show up in what I call the P's. Let me give you the P's. The P's are personal, pervasive, and permanent. Personal, pervasive, and permanent. Let me tell you how that sounds. So when you're trying to do something and you have that voice in your head, and instead of I failed at this, it says I am a failure. That's personal. You hear that's about you. I am a failure. It's not I failed doing this task. It's not this task didn't work. It's I'm a failure. Now, if you say to yourself, I am always a failure, that's permanent. Okay. I, personal, am always permanent, a failure. And what's more, I am always a failure at everything I do. That's the pervasive part. Oof. And we talk to ourselves like this. I was in a room full of 500 entrepreneurs. These people were all multi-million, earners. These people were all doing great money, great relationships. They were all, anyone from outside will look at any one of these men or women and go, you are successful people. I said, how many of you have a voice that talks to you in your head? Everybody's hand went up. I said, okay, if the voice is nice to you, put your hand down. Nobody put their hand down. Nobody in the room, because that voice talks to us in a way that we would never talk to somebody that we loved. And yet we let it talk to ourselves that way. And so the first step is becoming aware that when that voice shows up and it's talking in those P's, it's personal, it's permanent, or it's pervasive, or worse yet, it's all three. That's never the truth. Instead, what that is your brain is trying to protect you. This is actually your brain going, you might run into danger. And so I want to keep you from doing anything, because if you do something, something bad might happen. By the way, your brain is not always right about that. In fact, it's usually wrong. It's why people are afraid of public speaking. You know where that's coming from? They're literally afraid that if they go up there and they make a fool out of themselves, they're going to get kicked out of the tribe. Everyone's going to make fun of them. Nobody's going to want to hang out with them. I've attended a speaking event where the speaker had stuff go wrong and they messed up in the middle of the speech. I felt bad for him. I wanted to go hang out with them after and tell them how great a job they did and make them feel better. We don't look at them and go, oh my goodness, they failed, kick them out of the tribe. They must go. And yet that's what we think is going to happen to us. It's not a real fear, but in terms of it really happening, but our brain does that to protect us. And so as you start becoming aware of this, you can begin to write those limiting beliefs down. You'll notice I'm a big believer in writing things down. You can begin to then take those things that you write and change them from a limiting belief to an enabling truth. Here's what I mean by that. If you think I'm always a failure, all you have to do is name one time when you weren't a failure, and that statement is proved wrong. So write that one time down. That's it. You only have to have one instance, and it can't be always. Okay. I'm a failure. Really? You're a failure? Or did you just fail at some activity? Did you just not get something to happen right? Look at each thing as you say those things to yourself and begin to turn them into enabling statements. And then actually begin to read those enabling statements. I do this every morning. I actually have a list that I read every morning. And you know why? Because I'm programming my brain. Because now when that voice shows up, by the way, I named my voice. My name's Harry. And Harry looks like a duck-billed platypus, only he's bright purple and he's wearing a birthday hat. I made him funny looking, so I laugh when he shows up. And when he shows up and starts talking to me, my brain is already programmed with the answer. So when he says, "You're always a failure," I go, "Well, no, there was that one time. That's it. I'm not always a failure." And I begin to counteract those limiting beliefs, and it begins to reprogram our brain to take, it's not that those voices go away. They never really go away. You always have imposter syndrome. But what you can do is learn to dance with it in a way. You know, it's the old joke about public speaking. It's not that you don't have butterflies. It's just that you get them to fly in formation. You know, you just begin to learn to dance with it, and it becomes a different relationship. And instead of fear, you start recognizing that this could be excitement. This is actually about an energy that is a positive energy, not a negative energy. Because by the way, the neurochemistry of fear and excitement is exactly the same cascade of chemicals in our brain. So they really are the same thing, you know, but yet we will label it as fear or we'll label it as excitement based on the situation. And so it lets you reprogram that to begin to behave in a way that's very different than the behaviors you just kind of habitually fall into.
That was powerful. And we can think about how we all have that imposter syndrome at some point in our life, more than one time in our life. And I always say your worst critic is always you. Like, and what you think you did wrong, like, because I'm a public speaker, and they have no earthly idea if I skip something. They don't know. But in your mind, you're constantly thinking about, I meant to say this, but I didn't say that.
I messed this up. No, you didn't.
Yeah. And so it's just like you said, reframing our mind, preparing in advance, because it's going to be something that will happen. But when we prepare and we have them enabling good messaging that we remind ourselves, we'll be able to handle it better. And so I'm thinking about a lot of people who are maybe out here listening, who may struggle with too much month and not enough money. So what is the first steps do you recommend for gaining control over our finances without feeling overwhelmed? Because we talked about the emotional side of it, but I do want to touch on this just a little bit more, because with our current economy, finances is on the top of everybody's mind, and we're looking at the tariffs and all this different stuff. And like, now, how can I make my money work for the month? Because it's not enough month. So how can we help them with that?
So there's a lot of things you can do. You know, some of them we've talked about already when we were talking about making the plan and then sitting down and evaluating against the plan. That all still works. So I'm not going to repeat that. But a couple of other things, you know, stop buying eggs, right? That's it. That'll solve your problem. But not really. So what I think is important too is to realize that you've got more tools in your toolbox than a lot of times we think. And here's what I mean by that. There may be a period where you need to say no to some things that you really don't want to say no to. But for right now, you want to say no to them. Or alternatively, because there's two sides to the equation, there's expenses and there's income, you may want to say yes to doing some activities like a second job or some, you know, selling some stuff that maybe you really didn't want to sell, but, you know, I can live without it and I can replace it later. These sorts of things that are doing to bring in more income or to cut down on the expenses, and usually it's actually doing a little bit of both, are the things that can help us get through the short term. Now, here's the important part about that. Recognize that your life is a film strip, not a photograph. Here's what I mean. I don't care whether you're on the top of the mountain right now or at the bottom of the deepest valley. What I can tell you is you won't be there forever. It will change. Okay. And by the way, that's both at the really good times and at the really bad times. It's true, both of those, because your life is a film strip. It's constantly changing. Tomorrow will be different than today. Now, what we can do is begin to do things to leverage to make tomorrow better than today instead of just different. And that's about that sitting down with the plan, checking on what you're doing, spending the money where you're really intentional with it, actually paying attention to your behavior, thinking about what can I say no to temporarily to maybe break free of. Usually if you don't have enough money and you have too much money, there's a log jam somewhere, either on the income side or the expense side. And you're going to have to do something dramatic to clear the log jam. That may be working that second job. That may be cutting way back on some people I've even seen go move in with mom and dad for a little while, that kind of thing. The reason that happens is those are the things that you can do that make big dramatic changes and let you shift that log jam, but they're not permanent. It's not about going backwards forever. It's about taking a step back so you could reset, get on firm footing, refocus, gain control, set a plan, and then move forward effectively.
Wow. Scott, thank you so much for sharing all these tips and strategies with us, and also working with me real time, letting them see a real life example of the DISC process, and also all the different things that you can do on a corporate level in order to help our teams, for entrepreneurs, as well as on the individual level, and showing us how our behavior really can actually help us or not so much. But you also helped us with our mindset. You helped us with word placement, making sure that we say things the right way. And you are indeed the inspired stewardship extraordinaire. You definitely fit that great. So is there anything else you would like to leave with our audience? Anything you would like to say or do that you want them to do?
Sure. I actually put together a landing page just for your listeners. So some of these things that I was going through, some of these very same exercises, as well as a basic budget, some DISC tools and those sorts of things. I have all of those on a page where you can get them for free. It also has information about my book, and you can find that at inspiredstewardship.com/CTR. Again, it's got a free resource page. It's got information about my podcast if you want to check that out. And it's also got some information about a book I wrote called Inspired Living that kind of walks you through all of these frameworks we were talking about. So it's a way, if you're not ready for coaching, but kind of want to practice some of these things, it's a great way of getting them all in one place. And again, you can find that at inspiredstewardship.com/CTR.
Well, appreciate it. And who don't like a free gift? I mean, who don't like little freebies? But this is not a little freebie. Let me reframe that. This is a big thing. Okay, for you guys to be able to get your life together. And I'm going to go get it too, because I am a person that always want to make myself better. And so for everyone, this has been a great episode. What I want you guys to do right now is to download the CTR Media Network app today. This is our way of giving back to you by bringing amazing featured guests like Scott on the show to be able to help you with your life, with your business, or whatever it is that you are currently doing. This is a way that you can get it for absolutely free. You can download the app and watch his episode and many more. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode, and we will see you next week, the same time, same place. Have a great day. Bye.
Hey Think Fam, it's your favorite host, Michael Finkley, and you can listen to us on CTR Media Network. Go listen in.
Here's why you need to tune in right now. With CTR Media Network, you can transform your knowledge into a fully produced TV show. Imagine your content streaming on platforms like Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV, reaching over 350 million households in 140 countries. We take care of everything, from managing your ready-to-go content to global distribution. And it's not just any content, it's edutainment. A perfect blend of education and entertainment that keeps viewers coming back for more. You'll join a vibrant community of thought leaders, podcasters, and educators, all sharing a passion for impactful content and global reach. Plus, with our app available on Google Play and the App Store, your show will be accessible to millions more, ready to shine on the global stage. Let's get you started. Schedule a 15-minute call with us today and turn your idea into a TV sensation. Reply to this video by saying, "I want to learn more." Don't wait, your audience is out there waiting.